bring in the jury.
Please stand for the jury.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Martinez, you may call the next rebuttal witness.
The state calls Jacob Mefford.
Please come forward right up here to be sworn.
Can you spell your last name for me?
M-E-F-F-O-R-D.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please walk around and have a seat.
Your name, sir?
Jacob Mefford,
Drawing your attention back to the year 2000, where were you working?
prepaid legal services,
When did you begin working with prepaid legal services?
April 22nd, 2000.
And as part of working there at prepaid legal, did you have occasion to meet an individual by the name of Travis Alexander?
Yes.
And how is it that you met him? Were you guys upline? Were you next to each? How is it that you met him, and whether or not you became friends with him?
Met him through the business. We were sidelined, so no financial interest up or down. Just met through the business.
And in terms of the meetings that we're talking about, would you see him at these meetings that were held on a semi-annual basis, and perhaps other meetings? Is that when you would see him?
Yes.
Were you closer friends than that?
Yes.
And how close of friends were you and he?
Very close.
Would you socialize when you weren't working or not?
Yes.
And sir, throughout this time, did there come a time when you met somebody by the name of Jodi Arias?
Yes.
Is she in court today?
Yes.
Tell me where she is seated and what she is wearing.
Sitting right there, wearing a blue shirt, glasses.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the identification of the defendant?
Yes.
And you met her, was it part of a PPL function that you met her?
Yes.
And where was this function being held?
First time I met her was in San Bernardino, California at a Hilton Hotel.
And what kind of function was it?
It was a prepaid legal training.
And when you say prepaid legal training, what are you talking about?
It is a weekly event where we would all come together as distributors to learn how to do the business.
Is that the same thing as the events that we've been talking about that are held on a semi-annual basis, or is that something different?
It's different.
And the events that are, I guess, nationwide, how often are those for PPL?
2 from corporate, 1 from your individual organization.
When you say there's 2 from corporate and 1 from the individual organization, the 2 from corporate, when are they?
Normally one in the spring and normally one in the fall.
1 in the spring and 1 what?
In the fall.
All right, and in the spring, do you have any idea when you say the spring, when that would be?
Yep, normally March.
So there would be 1 in March, and in the fall, when would that be?
Approximately like September-ish.
And then you also talked about a third meeting, if you will, that's open to everybody. When was that?
Most of the time they were in June or July.
And what's the difference between the one in June and July and the other 2?
Just who they're hosted by. The one in June and July is hosted by the individual distributors. The ones in the spring and the fall are hosted by actual corporate.
Did you have occasion to attend the March 2007 corporate meeting?
Yes.
And where was that?
It was in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
And while you were there, did you have occasion to observe the interaction between the defendant and Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
And were they affectionate with each other, yes or no?
Yes.
Did you see that on more than one occasion or not?
Yes.
How often would you see that they were affectionate during that?
Just about every time that they were together.
And during that time, did you also have occasion to videotape their interaction together back in March of 2007 at this Oklahoma City meeting?
Yes.
I'm going to show you exhibit number 632. Prior to coming to court, did you take a look at this?
Yes.
And does that include the interaction between the defendant and Mr. Alexander back in March of 2007?
Yes.
I move for the admission of exhibit 632.
Approach.
You may. Six 32 is admitted.
So who is this individual to the upper left-hand corner that seems to be doing most of the talking?
Travis Alexander.
And there appears to be something blondish or white on his lap. Who is that?
Jodi Arias.
And this individual here to the right, do you see who that is?
Right next to Jodi,
Right.
Dan Freeman.
And to his left, the individual in the white shirt.
Christopher Hughes.
And the person that is sitting there with the black shirt, who is that?
Charlie Ethington.
Do you know about what time this video was shot?
Somewhere between probably 11 p.m. and midnight.
And this is after the meetings?
Yes.
At some point in this video, what does the defendant do? Do you know whether or not she keeps her head down there or not?
No, eventually she looks like she gets bored and she lifts his arm off of her and sits up.
And how long is this video approximately?
5 minutes.
And after this video was shot, what happened? Did the people go about their separate ways or not?
Yeah.
And in terms of the defendant and Ms. Arias, did they leave together or did they leave separately?
I'm not completely sure.
Now, did you also have occasion to be with them or continue knowing the two of them after March of 2007?
Yes.
And did you specifically have occasion to be with the both of them in June of 2007?
Yes.
What was the occasion for that?
It was an incentive trip hosted by Prepaid Legal for top leaders, and we were in Huntington Beach, California.
And do you know whether or not Mr. Alexander was there?
Yes, he was.
And was the defendant there also?
Yes, she was.
And did you have occasion to have some interaction with them during this particular event?
Yes.
How is it that they were between the two of them during this particular event? Were they distant? Were they together? How were they?
Affectionate, like a couple.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 633 and see if you're familiar with this.
Careful, there's water there.
Okay. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a photo of Jodi and Travis.
And where was the photo taken?
It was taken right outside of their room.
What room?
Their room at the Hyatt Hotel and Resort in Huntington Beach.
Okay. And the date was June of 2007?
Yes.
for the admission of Exhibit 633.
No objection.
33 is admitted.
Let's take a look at Exhibit 633. And she's wearing what? What is this?
That's a robe from the Hyatt.
Is that where you were staying?
Yes,
And who is this individual here?
Travis Alexander.
About what time of the day was this taken?
Approximately 9, 10 o'clock at night.
And was this after any activities involving PPL or not?
Yes,
And the activities ended about what time?
about the time when the sun goes down. So whatever time that was in June, so probably around, I'd say 8 o'clock-ish, something like that.
And after this photograph was taken, were there any days left in this vacation that was involved?
Yes,
And did they continue to be affectionate towards each other such that you could see or the public could see?
yes.
I don't have any other questions.
Cross-examination.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, from what you said just moments ago, you were a good friend of Travis's for a number of years, correct?
Yes,
And in that regard, then, would I be correct in assuming that you knew he was of the Mormon faith?
yes,
Okay. And you said that you saw Travis and Jodi as a couple for the first time in January of 2007, correct?
I didn't say that.
Okay, you said you met her for the first time in 2007, right?
I didn't say that either.
At the lobby of the San Bernardino Hilton?
I didn't give a date, but that's when I met her, yeah.
Okay.
That's
When was
where I
it?
met her.
When was that then?
Approximately fall of 2006, I believe, somewhere around there.
Fall of 2006. And then the next time you see them together is in March of 2007, correct?
No.
Okay, when's the next time you see them together?
I retract that, you're right. March 2007 was the last time I saw them after the first time that I met Jodi, when I saw Jodi and Travis together. You're right, in the fall of 2006. So the next time that I saw them would be March of 2007.
Okay, so the San Bernardino Hilton was fall of 2006, next time was March of 2007, this convention of, we just saw the video of, right?
Yes,
Okay. And then the next time would have been Huntington Beach in June of 2007, this Exhibit 633, when that was taken, correct?
that I can recall, yes.
Okay. And was that the last time?
The last time that I saw them together,
Yes, as a
No.
couple? Okay. And when was the last time you saw them together as a couple?
I can't quite recall. It would have been sometime later in 2007. I don't have a specific date, but sometime later in 2007.
Okay. You say that you saw them being affectionate towards each other. We saw the video, we saw the picture. This happened in March of 2007 and June of 2007, right?
Yes,
Okay. And you had also said to me when we spoke the other day that you knew there was a time when the relationship went underground, I think was your words, correct?
sure.
Okay. And did you have any knowledge of the fact that Travis and Jodi were having a sexual relationship in 2008?
No,
Thank you, sir.
Redirect.
In terms of a sexual relationship, did you and Mr. Alexander have a relationship such that you would kiss and tell?
no,
Would you have the relationship with him, that whatever sexual exploits you were involved in, that you would share those with him?
no,
Was that the type of relationship that the two of you had?
no.
You talked about seeing them together after this June 2007 photograph, which is this one. Where did you see them together?
At other prepaid legal functions.
And with regard to the prepaid legal functions that you saw them, were they speaking with each other? Would they talk to each other?
Yes,
And were they around each other?
yes,
Did they show any affection during those times?
yes.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the jury for this witness? You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
State calls Amanda Webb.
Please come forward, right up here to be sworn.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Please walk right around here and have a seat.
May I have your name, please?
My name is Amanda Webb.
And who do you work for?
I work for Wal-Mart.
And which Walmart do you work for?
I work for the store in Salinas, 2458. It's on North Main Street.
And how long have you worked at the Salinas store at the Walmart?
I've worked at the Salinas store for about 5 months now. I've worked for Walmart for 5 years.
And what are your present duties, or what is it that you do for Walmart? And if you don't mind pulling the microphone just a little bit, or you can move up, there you go.
I am an asset protection manager. I investigate internal theft. I investigate reports. I help the police officers investigate credit card theft, and I do a lot of that stuff.
As part of your duties, are you familiar how the registers work there at Walmart?
Yes, I am.
And are you also familiar with the procedure or the process involved in a return of merchandise from Walmart?
Yes.
Does it make a difference when somebody is returning something whether or not they have a receipt?
There is a different process for each way, but yes, there's a certain way we do that.
With regard to somebody who has a receipt, what is the process that the Salinas store undertakes if somebody wants to return an item? Generally speaking, what's the process?
From the beginning, so the customer comes in with their receipt and their item. The cashier will take their receipt and scan the barcode at the very bottom of the receipt, and then at that point, they'll match up what they call a SKU number or a UPC number from the item.
Let me slow you down a little bit by looking at, for example, 237.008. Do you recognize this as a Walmart receipt?
I do.
And is this a receipt that was issued by the store that you're currently working at?
It is, yes.
How do you know that?
Right at the top where it says ST number and it says 2458, that is my store number.
Okay, so you were telling us now about somebody who comes in with a receipt. Generally speaking, what is the first thing that happens? Do they go to any register, or do they go to a certain register? How does that work?
You generally go to customer service. You don't have to, but that's where they direct all the returns. If it's a long line, sometimes they will take you at other registers, but they do direct you to the customer service.
Let's assume, just for the sake of this particular inquiry, that they do go to customer service and there's somebody there. What is the first thing that's done? That the person presents a receipt, they present an item, and just take us through the process.
So what they'll do again is they'll scan the barcode at the very bottom right under this
All right,
TC
let me,
number. So they scan that barcode right there and it brings up the transaction in our
all
register.
right, so when you say that they scan the barcode and it brings up the transaction, what does it bring up? What is it that the person who is going to now initiate this refund, what is it that they're going to be looking at now?
It actually doesn't pull up anything on their screen particularly.
Okay.
It just pulls up that transaction, so whatever's being returned gets linked back to that transaction.
So in other words, their computer knows that they purchased whatever was sold under this barcode.
Yes.
Is this an internal kind of barcode that Walmart uses, or is this something that is identified to the particular products that are sold?
No, that's just the barcode for the transaction itself. It's to link that transaction to these items.
And for example, does this include the date and time that this transaction was made?
Yes.
So that, they pull this up, and then what happens?
Then they'll match the SKU number from the item to the SKU number that's on the receipt, so
You
that they're,
you used the word SKU, is that SKU?
it's SKEW.
SKEW. And what is it that number is? If we're looking at this, for example.
It's a universal code for all items. So say it's a non-Walmart brand, say it's a particular brand, that SKU number may be the same SKU number in another store. It just links that item to the number that's being scanned, so you know the price.
So as I understand it, that SKU number that you're talking about comes with the item that's being returned, right?
Yes.
So far, what we've talked about is this at the bottom has to do with Walmart and the receipt and the purchase, correct?
Yes,
The SKU number has to do with the item that's actually being brought to the counter for the refund, right?
yes,
And if we look down here, for example, this 5G, which is, let's assume 5 gallon, there's a bunch of numbers here. Is that the SKU number that we're talking about?
that is the SKU number, yes.
And every item that is sold by Walmart, does it include an SK, the SKU number?
Yes.
So what happens then? The person comes in with a receipt, they have this item, they have the SKU, that has a SKU number on it. What happens then? How do you ensure, for example, that it actually was purchased at Walmart?
Just base it on the receipt, you take the customer's word for it.
And then you have this receipt, correct? That
Yes.
tells you. So for example, if they were bringing back a 5 gallon can and this number wasn't on there, then it wasn't sold at Walmart then, right?
Yes.
So then what happens?
Once they match those up, they'll have some sort of documentation on that paper on the receipt, the original receipt that the customer actually retains after. Generally, they cross out the item that they have been returning or circle it, and they always put it like an initial next to that.
So let me stop you there. So for example, if we were talking about this one right here at the bottom, the individual would either cross it out or circle it as part of the process there, correct?
Yes. There has
And
to be
then
some
they,
sort of documentation.
and they would initial it, right?
Yes.
So for example, in looking at this exhibit that we're talking about, exhibit 237.008, based on this particular process that you're talking about, since nothing's crossed out, circled, or there's no initials, was anything refunded involving this?
I would say no.
All right.
There is human error, but I would say no.
So then what happens?
At that point, they will process it through the computer system, and the customer will get their money. They have to sign another sheet of paper with their signature on it, and they'll get their original receipt back with the documentation that item's been returned. And we do that so that they can't go with the same item to another store and return it again.
So with regard to the computer record that may be generated as part of the return, you said, well, there's I guess, the computer notation somewhere that this item actually was refunded?
There's not anything in the computer. I mean, we keep track of every single transaction, so it's in the computer system that way. And it goes back into our on-hands, but there's not a computer that specifically says, you know, this item has been returned.
How about at the register? Is there an indication that that item was returned at the register pursuant to what went on?
Yes.
And so that's the place to look if we're going to take a look for
Yes.
whether or not a refund was made, right?
Yeah.
How many cash registers are there or were there back on June 3rd of 2008 at Walmart?
There was, I believe, 25 on the front end. Then there's a few outlying registers, such as sporting goods, electronics. So I'd say probably 27, 28, maybe 30.
And this receipt that we're talking about involves a transaction on June 3rd of 2008, correct?
Yes.
And on June 3rd of 2008, were you able to go back and determine how many cash registers were open at Walmart on that particular date?
Yes.
And was this that you checked done for a 24-hour period?
Yes.
And did you check each and every single cash register, including the ones that don't normally give refunds, to see what refunds were given on that particular date?
Yes.
And those records, are they included in exhibit number exhibit number 634?
Yeah. Those are all the transactions that I printed out that day for that time frame.
And these are the transactions for each and every register that was operating on June 3rd of 2008 on that particular date.
Yes.
Does that include the registers that were not, design may not be the word, but that were designated to refund?
Yes.
You indicated that sometimes that does happen, right?
It does, and there's certain items such as jewelry that you would have to return in the jewelry department, so there are returns sometimes on other registers.
And these records represent each and every one of those cash registers, if you will, on June 3rd, 2008, involving these transactions as to whether or not there was a refund, right?
Yes.
The refund, if there is one, is there a record made at the time that the refund is generated?
Yes, anytime an item is refunded, we keep that record in what they call an electronic journal. So the register sends it to this electronic journal. And so anytime anything's purchased, returned, refunded, it's always kept in the system.
And are these records kept in a normal course of business?
Yes.
And the information that's being kept, is that being generated at the time that the refund is going through?
Yes.
And these are the records that you actually pulled up for June 3rd of 2008, correct?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the system and how it works, correct?
Yes. I work with that a lot.
Move for the admission of Exhibit 634.
You may. Six 634 is admitted.
Let's talk about these records. For example, as we look at these, I want to have you focus on the number that's right here on the upper right-hand corner. Do you see that?
Yeah, the 3?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that a terminal number?
That's the register number.
And then if we look at it here, it talks about reading. What does that mean?
That's the total sales that they had through that register.
So if that register, for example, on that date of June 3rd of 2008, generated sales in the amount of $3,233.34, right?
Yes.
It then talks about line voids. What are those?
That would be items that have been voided through the transaction.
At that register?
Yes, at that particular register. This all pertains to that one register.
And so as to register number 3, it also has returns on it, right?
Yes.
It has zeros on it. What does that mean?
That means nothing was returned on that register that day.
So for example, if we're talking about exhibit number 237.008, and we're talking about this 5-gallon item right here, that was not returned on June 3rd of 2008 at that register.
Correct.
And no refund was made, at least at that register, right?
Yes.
And then it talks about discount. What is that about?
That would be associate discount, so through Walmart, we have our own discounts that we do get, and that would show up in there as a discount.
And the daily sales, why do we have that? And then we also have the reading. What is the difference there?
The difference is the money that's actually in the register and the money that they're making, so there's a difference in that.
And then we talked about the net refund items. What does that mean?
That's the items that have been returned, so there was 0 items, that's what that refers to, there was 0 items returned on that register.
So in this case, with regard to register number 3, was this 5-gallon gas can, and see in exhibit number 237.008, was that returned at this terminal number 3?
No,
How about this one, number 4 at the top? Were there any returns there?
there was not.
So again, the question 237.008, which is this Walmart receipt, was this 5-gallon item returned there?
Nothing was returned on that register, no.
How about register number 5? Was anything returned there?
No, there was nothing returned on that.
So again, the question is, was this item that's at the bottom of this receipt, 237.008, was that returned at that register?
No,
How about register number 7? Did that have any returns that day?
there was no returns on that register that day, no.
How about register number 8? Any returns?
No, there was no returns.
And this is all for June 3rd of 2008, correct?
Yes. No returns done on
Number
that
9,
register.
any returns on that register?
No,
Number 10, any returns on that register?
no.
Now we go to number 13. How come we don't have 11 and 12? What's going on?
11 and 12 were operating that day, so nobody jumped onto that register and operated it, so there's no journal of that.
And so on number 13, were there any returns?
No,
14, that register, did that have any returns that day?
no,
Then we skip all the way to 43, terminal number 43. Were any of the other registers between the one that we looked at, number 14, and number 43, working or operational back on June 3rd of 2008?
no, there would be a journal for that. When I look through the journal itself, it just shows me the registers that were operating. So if that register was not operating that day, it won't show it to me at all.
And if it's not operating, would it generate a return at all?
No,
How about terminal 44? Did that have any returns?
no,
Terminal 46, any returns?
no,
Terminal 45, did that have any returns?
no,
Terminal 52, did that have some returns?
it did.
And how much was the return on that one?
It was for $9.93.
And if we take a look at exhibit 237.008, do you see the amount that is the one at the bottom is how much it is?
$12.96, yes.
So since the price is $12.96, does that mean that that item that we are looking at here is not the item that's represented at register number 52?
That's correct.
Because the prices don't match, correct?
Yes,
But did you also check at this register to see whether or not this item, this 5-gallon item, was returned?
yes,
And had it been returned?
no,
Then if we look at the second page that's attached to this particular 52, we have some more records, what do these indicate that we haven't seen before?
That's the actual transaction that was returned or refunded. So as you can see, the shirt tie, that there's a SKU number on there next to it, and then it says $9.93 with the minus right after that. That was returned, and then they exchanged it for the shirt below it for the same price.
So what we're talking about with regard to register number 52, there was a return or a refund, correct?
Yes,
And then the second page that's attached to it shows us what the item was and the amount, correct?
yes.
Register 59, did that have any refunds?
It did.
And how much money was involved?
$223.05.
And attached to it is there an itemization of all of the items that were refunded?
Yeah, every refund transaction for that register, I printed out and attached each of the,
And so in this case, there's 1, 2. This is the layaway cancel, correct?
yes, so that the money that they had put down was refunded to that customer.
3, 4. 5. And 6 items, right?
Yes, and as you can see, the TC number, that's what relates back to that original receipt with the barcode at the bottom.
You indicated something about the what number?
The TC number right here,
Uh-huh.
right under receipt number 1, that is relating to that barcode at the very bottom, and that's how you could connect that receipt to that actual transaction, that return itself.
So what you're talking about is the TC number that we see here, if this were the receipt, would be at the bottom down here, correct?
Yes,
And then we see TC number there, right?
yes.
Did you check the TC numbers throughout the store for June 3rd of 2008 to determine whether or not this receipt had ever been brought back for a refund or any other activity?
I didn't check the TC number, no. I checked the specific item, and then I went through each register and checked that registers for that item.
All right. Then register 65, any
There was
returns?
No returns done that day.
Register 67, any returns there?
No.
Register 70, any returns?
No.
And register 73, did that have any returns?
It did.
And how much was the amount?
$3.20.
And line voids, that's something different, right?
Yes.
And so if we look at this one, we know that the $3.20 involves something called Bounty Nap or something like that, correct?
Yes.
That would be napkins, wouldn't it? Or do you know?
I believe, yes, that would be paper towels.
And register 76, any returns on that one?
No.
Register 77, any returns on that one?
No.
And register 79, any returns there?
There was for
And-
$73.88.
Then if we take a look at the accompanying documentation, we have what actually was returned, right?
Yes.
It appears to be a prescription, right?
Yes.
Then we have a very large packet at Terminal 92. Can you tell us why it would be that Terminal 92 has so much or so many returns, whereas the other ones that we've been looking at do not have that?
That's actually a customer service register. So that's where all returns are normally done.
And the amount of returns was how much at that register that day?
$4,441.55.
And each and every one of those items that was returned is listed or attached to this particular packet involving terminal number 92,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
And in any of those, you've reviewed those, right?
I did. Took me a
Do
very
any
long
of those
time.
include this item that we've been talking about here, this 5-gallon item that's down here at the bottom?
It did not.
And Terminal 93, it's also a lot of documents there, correct?
Yes, it's also another customer service register.
And this indicates the returns and the amount, correct?
Yes,
And it also includes a listing of every single item that was returned, correct?
it does, yes.
And you were the person who actually checked this, correct?
I did. It took me a very long time to go through everything.
And in this particular terminal or register 93, was this 5-gallon item ever refunded?
No,
The last register that you checked was 95, correct?
yes,
It did have a return on there, right?
it did, yes.
And the amount was how much?
$63.53.
And if we take a look at the attachment to it, what are we looking at there?
It's a battery return and a battery core return. It was a car battery.
So after your review of all of the registers, after your review of whatever computer's work may have been done there, and after a review of Exhibit 237.008, was this 5-gallon can, that we now know as a can of gas, was it ever returned for a refund on June 3rd of 2008?
It was not, and I actually researched that SKU number specifically for about a week. It hadn't been returned or purchased until about a week later.
So in other words, after looking at this, you researched it further to find if there had been another purchase involving this particular gas can, correct?
Yes.
And when was the next time that you found that there actually had been a purchase?
It was about a week and a half after the time frame.
And even during that week and a half from June 3rd to when you found this item being purchased, did you ever find any indication whatsoever in the records that this item had ever been refunded, ever at the Salinas store?
Not in the time frame I searched it, no, it had not been refunded.
I don't have any other questions.
Cross-examination?
No questions, Your Honor.
Any questions from the jury? It looks like we do have one. Any other questions? Counsel, please. A juror has a question for you. In the return system, is there a way to refund cash with a dummy SKU or no SKU at all?
You have to have a SKU number to do the return. So there is a way you could return it, but it would have to have some sort of a SKU number to link it into the system. They can't just give you money for an item. It has to go through the system and it has to have a SKU number. It has to have something attaching it to something in Walmart. So you can't just return something and just get money for it and just say that's what the item is.
Follow up, Mr. Martinez.
As I understand it, every single item that gets returned or refunded has to have this SKU number attached to it, correct?
Yes.
So even if it doesn't have one, is there a refund, or that's given or not?
We would go find an item that either has the same exact SKU number, or we would have to go through the system and find a SKU number for that.
And without a SKU number, would that ever be refunded?
No.
And whether it's a dummy number or a non-dummy number, was there ever a 5-gallon gas can returned on June 3rd of 2008 to the Walmart?
No, not that I researched. I didn't find anything that had a gas can involved in it.
Nope. Nothing else, thank you.
Mr. Nuri.
No questions, Your Honor.
Any other questions from the jury? Thank you. You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
State calls Chelsey Young.
Please come forward to be sworn.
Can you spell your first and last name?
Chelsecy. Young, Y-O-U-N-G.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Your name, please?
Chelsey Young,
And who do you work for?
Tesoro.
If you don't mind pulling the microphone just a little bit towards you. That's the whole thing. And what is Tesoro? What kind of business is Tesoro?
We're an oil company.
And what does Tesoro do? Do they sell gas, or explain to me what goes on with Tesoro?
We sell gas mostly on the West Coast, at gas stations.
And so, what do you do for them?
I'm a manager in the IT department.
And what are your duties in the IT department? What is it that you do with regard to the gas stations in the West Coast area?
We support all of the equipment from the gas pumps into the store, fuel and merchandise sales, supporting any IT-related issues, making sure that everything's functioning, the record-keeping, accounting data, credit card data, every kind of sale that happens inside and outside the store.
When you say inside or outside of the store, are we talking about gas stations?
Yes.
And with regard to outside of the store, if there's a purchase of gasoline outside of the store, is your area or the place where where do you work? What town do you?
I work in San Antonio, Texas.
And with regard to any transaction that is done, for example, in a gas station in the West Coast, do you keep records of that at your office in Texas?
We do. We have records of every transaction inside and outside at every station.
So how does that work? If somebody, for example, is at the gas pump and they take a credit card and they swipe it through, what ends up happening to the record-keeping function of that swiping of the credit card? Does that go to you? Does that go to them being the local affiliate, or does it go to both? How does that work?
It goes to both. It's stored locally at the store, and then it's backed up to our office for record keeping. We've got archive data. All of the credit card and transactions for accounting is all taken care of at the San Antonio office.
And at the San Antonio office, when there is that, again, we're keeping with the outside, when there is that swipe of that credit card, does the record that gets generated, does that get generated at the time that, or near the time that the person swipes the credit card? Is that when it gets generated?
It's real time, give 2 to 3 minutes.
And with regard to it being generated, is it generated, this record in San Antonio, is it generated with the information, if you will, from, for example, the credit card that's being swiped?
Yes.
And do you keep the whole credit card number, or do you just keep certain digits?
We keep, due to PCI, we keep certain digits.
You used an acronym there. What was that?
It's PCI compliance. We can't keep cardholder information, the full digits any longer. We can keep the last 4 of the card.
So apparently, in order to be compliant with whatever regulation is out there, you can't keep the whole number, but you just keep the last 4 numbers, right?
Correct.
And those last 4 numbers, are they transmitted as part of this sale that's going on to your office?
Yes, the full transaction data is processed over to credit card. For the IT department, it's the last 4 of the card and the cardholder's name.
And are these records kept in the normal course of business by Tesoro as part of their business practice?
Yes.
And you're one of the individuals that's in charge of this particular area, correct?
Correct.
And so what about if we have a transaction inside of the store and, again, a credit card is used? Is it the same procedure, or is it a different procedure?
It's the same procedure.
And so are those, again, those records that are generated inside the store or from a transaction inside the store, are they kept in the normal course of business as you've described by Tesoro?
Yes.
Ma'am, with regard to somebody, let's say, generally speaking, if they go out to the gas pumps outside, and let's say that they swipe the card 2 times. Let's assume that for this hypothetical. What happens if in that short period of time, that same individual goes to swipe the card a 3rd time? Do they get the gas dispensed if they're outside, or is something triggered at Tesoro?
It'll give them an AB transmission error. The AB transmission error on the 3rd credit card swipe is a method of fraud prevention. So on the first 2 card swipes, the transactions would go through. On the 3rd card swipe, the customer would be forced to go inside to the store and present the card to the cashier so that the cashier can identify that the person using the card is the card holder, and they can process the sale at the register.
It's not that the sale won't go through, it's just that the person is being required to go inside then, right?
Correct.
And it's a fraud prevention sort of issue, correct?
Correct.
Let's take a look at some exhibits here. This is exhibit number 237.017. It does say Tesoro, and it does talk SLC. Is that Salt Lake City, Utah?
It is.
And you're familiar with this receipt. You've looked at it before, correct?
Yes.
And is this Tesoro gas station one of the gas stations that provides the records to your division in San Antonio, Texas?
It is.
And if we look at it, it does talk about one regular, what are we talking about? Is this a sale of gas, or is this a sale of something else?
The regular is the fuel, the regular fuel grade, and this was on pump number 2 for 9.583 gallons.
Okay. And if we look down here at the bottom, what is the date that this says that this transaction was approved?
June 6, 2008,
And the time, please?
4:05.
And 42
AM?
seconds?
Yes,
And that's AM is what, I think I cut you off, right?
correct.
And the individual whose card was involved,
Jodi Arias,
and the last 4 digits of the card she used was what?
2015.
Was this done at the pump, or was this done,
This was done at the pump.
was this done
Sorry, can you move it back up?
this way?
To the bottom. I'm sorry, this was done at the register. At the very bottom, you see POS 1.
Okay, at the very bottom, you said something about POS. What is POS?
That's the register, point of sale.
All right,
so
and so
this-
then we have something down here, it says cashier, right?
Yeah, cashier number 180, which would be
And-
tied to somebody's name.
And then it has a date and a time, correct?
Correct.
If we then compare it to this 237.016, and if we go to the bottom of it, do we see a cashier here or not?
No, this is because it has the driver ID that indicates that it was done out at the pump.
So that this was done at the pump, correct?
Correct.
And what pump are we talking about?
This was also on pump number 2.
And what are they buying?
They bought regular fuel at 10.672 gallons.
And at a price of $3.85, correct?
Correct.
The time on this is what? Do you see that right there?
3:57 a.m.
If we take a look at the previous exhibit, which is 237.017, and we look at the time, you see that time there?
Yes,
Was this done after or before the previous sale?
after.
And they're both for gasoline, correct?
Correct.
Ma'am, did you also have a chance to see whether or not there was a 3rd transaction that was involved with this Tesoro?
Yes, we did find a 3rd transaction.
And you did, let me show you an exhibit to see if, and you don't need to refer to it if you know, but if you do, let me know and we'll talk about that. Was there a 3rd transaction?
There was.
And the 3rd transaction, was it after this one that was at 3:57, or was it after the one that was at 4:05 in the morning?
I believe it was after the 3:57.
So it would have been after this one right here, 3:57, which is exhibit number 237.016, correct?
Correct.
In terms of the time, if I show you Exhibit 635, will that refresh your recollection as to the time? Just look for the time when that transaction took place.
Yes. It was at 4:01.
So if that one was at 4:01 in the morning, the second transaction, that would mean that the first transaction was at 3:57, right?
Correct.
4:01 is 4 minutes later, correct?
Correct.
Was that transaction at the pump or was that inside?
It was done at the pump.
And so now we have the two transactions going on. Was there a credit card that was used?
There was.
Was it the same credit card that was being used here, the one that ended at 2015?
It was the same credit card.
And how much gas was purchased?
I believe it was 40.
Well, let me show you Exhibit 635 and see if that refreshes your recollection. Read it, and after you read it, see if that refreshes your recollection as to how much gas was purchased. Go ahead and read it to yourself.
It was
No,
1960.
go ahead and read it to yourself. Are you done?
I'm sorry. Yes.
All right, if I may have it back. How much gas was purchased?
It was $19 and
No, in terms of the amount.
it's 5 gallons.
And what was the amount?
19 and some change.
All right, take a look at Exhibit 635. That refreshes your recollection as to the amount.
1965.
Okay. So if this was the second transaction that was involved, and this one here was the third transaction, Exhibit 237.015, in terms of sequencing, because the card had already been used twice outside, is that when the rule about fraud comes in and the person has to go inside? Is that how that works?
That's correct.
So in this case, how many transactions for gas was there?
3.
And there was initially Exhibit 237.016. How many gallons of gas were purchased?
10 gallons, 10.672 gallons.
672. And then the next one was 5 gallons, correct?
Correct.
Or approximately. And then the last one under 237.017 was how many gallons?
9.583.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Showing you Exhibit 237.017. We were just looking at a moment ago. This is your store in Salt Lake City, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In your capacity, what was your job title again?
I'm a manager of IT.
Okay. In your job capacity then as an IT manager, would you have any knowledge about whether or not someone can pay at the pump with cash at this store?
They cannot pay at the pump with cash.
Okay. They can pay inside with cash?
That's correct.
And if someone pays inside with cash, the cashier wouldn't collect personal information, name, driver's license, anything else. They say they want $20 on pump 2, they get $20 and that's the end of it, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So if someone wanted to make a cash transaction, the transaction wouldn't contain their name, credit card number, and the time they did it, would it?
No, it would not.
Thank you, ma'am.
Redirect?
But in this case, ma'am, the transaction that took place inside the store as set out in Exhibit 237.017, was that cash or was that credit?
This was credit.
And was it for items such as potato chips or other items like that, or was it for gas?
It was for gas.
And how much gas was purchased by Jodi Arias on June 6th of 2008 at 4:05 inside of this store?
Objection, beyond the scope of cross.
What is the purchase amount here?
Objection, beyond the scope of cross.
Approach, please.
credit transaction, correct? And what's the amount that was paid on this credit transaction?
$36.98.
I don't have any other questions.
Any questions from the jury for this witness? Thank you. You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
State called Deanna Reid.
You may.
And if, 2001, did
Of
you say?
2001, yeah.
Had, for example, had he decided to go behind your back and start seeing people at the beginning or the middle of the relationship, was there any way that you would have been able to find out that you know of?
No.
So he tells you this, and so is that sort of the time that you break up?
Yes, it is.
And you return then in what? What year do you return in month?
I returned in November of 2001.
And when you returned, what city did you return to? Where were you living back
I
then?
was living in Riverside, California.
And where was Mr. Alexander living back then?
He was also living in Riverside.
Did you then, after you came back, did you have occasion to start meeting with him, talking with him, or seeing him, or anything like that?
Yes, several weeks after I had been home from my mission, we started talking again, and I would see him at church. And so we began talking and being friends again.
And as you began to talk and you became friends, did this become more than a friendship?
It did. Yeah, we began dating again.
And about when was that, if you returned in what, the end of 2001, when would this be that you started to date again?
In the beginning of 2002.
And when you began dating in 2002, was it a situation where he could date other people or just you, or were you guys exclusive, or did you talk about it?
At that time, we were exclusive when we started dating again in 2002.
And was this in Southern California again?
It was, yes.
And while you are continuing to date in Southern California, did there come a time when there was a move from the Southern California area?
Yes, in 2004.
So it looks like from 2001 to 2004, you're dating in Southern California?
Yes,
And during that time, you and he are dating exclusively then, right?
we are from 2002 to 2004.
During that time, did there come a time when you and he had some, for example, any disagreements during that period of time?
Sure, we had arguments or disagreements just like any normal couple.
And during those disagreements, would he ever, and any of those disagreements, he ever curse at you?
No, never.
Would he ever call you names?
No, he did not.
And during any of those times, did he ever strike you or physically advance on you or inflict any physical violence on you?
No, never.
And this was when you came back in around 2002 to when?
To when I moved in 2004.
And you said that you moved in 2004. So that was a continuous portion of the relationship then, approximately 2-3 years, something like that?
Yes, yeah.
And when you moved, where did you move to?
I first moved to Phoenix.
And you were the first one to move?
No, actually, he was the first one to move, and he
And-
moved to Mesa.
And why did he move? You said, where did he move to?
To Mesa on Queensboro?
So is that the address where he was killed?
Yes.
And so when he moved there, do you know why he moved to Mesa?
Yes, I had a job in Irvine, California, Knox Company, and the entire corporate office moved to Phoenix, Arizona from Irvine, California. And I agreed to go with them and help in the transition. And so I was moving to Phoenix, and Travis, had wanted to buy a house and thought that Phoenix or Mesa in particular would be a good place to buy a house.
Why would it be a good place to buy a house in Mesa?
Because just the pricing for homes was better than in Southern California.
So who came out here first, you or Mr. Alexander?
Mr. Alexander did.
And then you came afterwards?
I did. A few months later, I moved out.
During the time that you were apart, what year again was that?
That was in 2004.
Do you remember the months that this was?
I believe it was in April of 2004.
And during that time, in April of 2004, that you were apart, did you still continue to be boyfriend and girlfriend?
Yes.
And so then you move up here. Did you move in with him?
No, we did not move in together. I had my own apartment in Phoenix.
And when did you arrive here? If you could give me the month, perhaps, and maybe the year.
When I moved into the apartment, that was in April of 2004.
And did you and Mr. Alexander continue to see each other?
Yes, we did.
Did you continue to date exclusively?
We did.
And did you continue to date for how long?
Then we dated until we broke up in 2005.
And about when in 2005 did you, a month?
It was around the end of 2005.
And during that time, from April of 2004, when you came out here, and the end of 2005, did you have occasion to be with him on a, if you will, continuous basis?
Yes, we saw each other all the time.
Would you visit him at his home?
Yeah, I
Would
was
he-
there often.
And would he visit you at your place?
Yes,
And during this time, was there occasions where you and he would have disagreements?
there would be, but it wasn't very often. And we never really got mad at each other. We had a fun relationship and we liked being together.
But if, let's say that there was a disagreement, was there ever an occasion when he would scream at you?
No,
Was there ever an occasion where he would curse at you?
no,
Any occasion where he ever laid his hands on you?
no.
So who broke off the relationship at the end of 2005?
I did at the end of 2005. We had been dating for a while at that point, and I was ready for marriage. And at that time, he wasn't. And because of that, I felt like I needed to move on with my life and that we would be better dating other people so that I could get to that point of getting married.
And I assume that you were the one that actually gave him the news.
Yeah, at his house one evening, we sat down. I told him we needed to talk about our relationship. And we talked about it, and I told him that this is what I wanted. And if he didn't want to get married, then I was going to need to move on, and we were both going to need to move on. We had dated for long enough. And then at that point, he began to cry, and so did I. And we decided that we would remain friends.
And at that time, when you were having this conversation, and he's emotional, and you've described yourself as being emotional, at any point did he become physical, such as throwing you down, put his hands on you in any way, shape, or form?
Absolutely not.
Did he curse at you in any way?
No, he did not.
And did he raise his voice in any way?
No, he never raised his voice to me.
And so you have this conversation, you break up, and are you still living in Phoenix up north?
Yes, at that point, I had moved, well, there was a time when I moved to Mesa and was living there for a while with my sister.
And so was this when you broke up with him?
Yes, and then soon after the breakup, I moved up to North Phoenix.
So at that time of the breakup, you had actually moved to Mesa, living with your sister.
Yes.
And after the breakup, you moved to Phoenix.
That's correct, yeah.
How far away was your home from his, the one that was in Phoenix? How far away was it in terms of travel time?
When I lived up in North Phoenix, I was at least 45 minutes from Travis's house.
And even though you were 45 minutes away, did you and he continue to socialize?
We did. I talked on the phone with him often.
And during that time, when you guys broke up, did you have occasion to start doing this text messaging thing, or was that not around so much back then?
Yeah, we didn't text all that much, mostly just talking on the telephone.
And when you and he would continue to talk as friends, any indication that he was ever, if he ever got angry at you, that he would ever scream at you?
No, he wouldn't.
Any time that he ever got angry that he would call you names during that time?
No,
Did he ever physically touch you in an inappropriate fashion, in other words, violently during that time?
no, he would never do that to me.
Did you continue staying here in the Phoenix area or not?
Yes, I was in North Phoenix.
And you stayed there and you're still there now?
No, I'm not there now. Sorry, I moved from that apartment in North Phoenix back to Riverside, California in 2008.
In what year?
2008.
And about what month did you move back?
I believe it was May of 2008.
And why did you move back to Riverside in May of 2008?
I moved back because I had quit my job, and I planned on just staying with the Knox company to help them transition, and ended up staying out here for, about 5 years or so. And I didn't plan on doing that, and so I wanted to then go back and start going back to school and do what I really have always wanted to do, which was teach school.
And are you teaching now?
I work for the Riverside School District as an instructional aide for special needs students.
And do you have a degree?
I do.
What is your degree in?
I have a bachelor's degree in liberal studies.
Going back to the time that you were with Mr. Alexander and you and he were dating monogamously, did there ever come a time that you ever saw when other people would come up to Mr. Alexander to discuss whether or not he was chaste? In other words, whether or not he was engaging in sexual relations?
Yes, I would. People like to joke around with him a lot, and he liked to joke around. And so sometimes people would come up to him jokingly and teasing him about that.
And teasing him that he was chaste or not?
That he was a virgin.
And what would his response be? Would he say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not? What would his response be?
He would just laugh about it at first. He would laugh and then quickly change the subject, but leaving the impression that he was.
That he was what?
That he was a virgin.
And so, did you ever hear him during the times that he was asked, did you ever hear him say or proclaim that he was?
No.
But you did see this exchange between him and other people though, right?
Yes, I did.
You said that you and he broke up in 2005, and yet you moved back in May of 2008 back to Riverside, correct?
Yes.
During that time, that period that you were broken up, did you continue seeing Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, we were good friends.
And during the time, for example, that you were boyfriend and girlfriend, did you ever see any indication that he had, for example, photographs of little boys?
No.
Did you ever, at any occasion, see anything or any photographs of little girls that he had?
No.
Did you have occasion to be up in his bedroom?
Yes. Yeah, I was up
Once?
there all the time at his house. I was in his bedroom all the time at his house.
Any indication, for example, that there were any toys or any kids' toys or anything like that?
No.
Did you ever get on his computer to look at things?
No.
So you've never actually went on the computer then, correct?
No, I don't think I've ever been on his computer.
And with regard to the computer, who bought it?
I bought that computer.
And was it a gift from you to him?
It was a Christmas gift.
What year did you buy it, do you know?
I don't remember what year it was.
And during this time that you and he were friends, did you, for example, continue to come on over to his house?
Yes, I did.
Do you know whether or not he had a pet?
Yes, he has a dog named Napoleon.
And who has that dog now?
I have that dog.
And with regard to during the time that, again, during this time period where you guys are friends, did you continue being close friends such that you would tell each other whatever things that close friends tell each other?
Yeah, we did. We trusted each other.
And at any time during that time, did he ever scream at you obscenities or anything like that?
No, he didn't. Our relationship wasn't like that.
And at any time, did he ever physically touch you in any way inappropriately, for example, striking you or anything?
No.
Did he ever curse at you during that time when you left in May of 2008?
No, he didn't.
And even after you left in May of 2008, did you continue to have contact with him?
Yeah, I did.
And did you have contact with him, including these text messages?
Yeah, we would text sometimes.
And would you also talk on the telephone?
Yeah, we would talk on the telephone and text, but mostly talking on the telephone.
How about emails, that sort of thing? Would you do that?
Every once in a while, yes.
I don't have any other questions, thank you.
Approach, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the noon recess at this time. Please be back in the designated area at 1:25. Please remember the admonition. Have a nice lunch. You are excused.
Stand for the jury.
We are at recess. Thank you, please be seated. You may. Ms. Reid, please take the stand.
Please stand for the jury.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Nurmi, you may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Reid, good afternoon.
Hello.
I want to ask you some questions, begin this afternoon by talking about your relationship with Travis. If I heard you correctly, you said that you met him in 1998, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And how old were you back in 1998?
I was 20, I believe. Yes, 20.
Okay. And based on what you told us about Mr. Alexander being 1 year older than you, he would have been about 21, right?
About that.
Okay. And how did you meet him? What were I know you talked about meeting through mutual friends, that sort of thing. Was this a club? Was this a church activity? Could you just kind of describe that for us?
He was actually at my apartment and my roommates were there, and I had just come home from work and was introduced to him. That was the first time I met him.
Okay, so it's through friends. Were you both members of the same church?
Yes,
Okay, and what church is that?
the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay. And we heard a little bit of testimony a while back, kind of a little bit about how the organization, if you will, of that church works, about wards and things like that. You're familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Okay. Were you in the same ward as Mr. Alexander?
yes, we were.
Okay. Did you go to the same church, physical church as Mr. Alexander?
Yes,
Okay. And because you said, and let me back up a step, your membership in the church, if you will, were you kind of born into the church, or did you join the church later on in life? Could you explain that to us?
my parents joined the church when I was 1 year old.
Okay.
So yes, I grew up in the church.
Okay. And to your understanding, how did Mr. Alexander come to the church?
That his family were members of the church, but weren't actively attending church.
Okay. When you say his family, are you referring to his mother and father, or are you referring to someone else?
Well, as far as I know, the grandparents were definitely members of the church, and his parents as well, I believe.
Okay. Now, you said that you began dating in 2000?
Yes,
Okay. So, based on what you've told us, we have about approximately 2 years of just a friendship, correct?
Approximately.
Okay. How did that friendship turn into a dating relationship?
We just started hanging out and spending more time with each other on a regular basis and got to know each other better, and we liked each other and started dating.
Okay. And hanging out, was that a lot of church activities in this ward that you
There
shared?
were.
Okay. And dating per se, was that, you guys go out together? Would you go out in groups? How did that work?
Sometimes we would go out in groups, and sometimes we would go out just him and I.
For lack of a better way of saying it, was there a point in time where he became your boyfriend?
Yes.
And when would you say that point in time was?
I don't know if there was a pinpoint date in time.
I'm not asking an exact date, maybe month and year kind of thing.
I would say around the spring of 2000.
Okay. So after a few months of dating, 3-4 months of dating, whatever it is, you become boyfriend and girlfriend.
That's correct.
Okay. And based on what you've told us before, this preceded your mission in Costa Rica by, I guess it would be a couple months, right?
That's right.
Okay. And when you were boyfriend and girlfriend, if I'm stepping forward in time, you would have been 21, he would have been 22 or 23?
By the time that I left in 2000, I was 21.
Okay. What did being boyfriend and girlfriend, what did that mean to you and Travis at the time?
That we were dating exclusively.
Okay. Did it mean anything else?
I don't know what you're referring to.
Okay.
We were dating.
Well, did it come with a degree of expectations for the future?
Not right away, no.
Not right away? Okay. Which leads me to my next question. Eventually, it did, right?
Eventually, you start to think about the future when you're in a relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And when did that eventually, you start thinking about the future? When did that start to occur?
I started thinking about it more just before I left.
Okay. Left for your mission, just to be clear, right?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes,
Let's say
sorry.
yes for this gentleman here. So you leave for Costa Rica in June of 2000. Have you talked to Travis about these thoughts or expectations that you had?
We did talk about it.
Okay. And were you, before you left, was there a plan, so to speak, for when you returned in terms of your relationship?
There wasn't a set plan.
Okay. At that point in time, was the subject of marriage brought up between the two of you?
It was brought up, but I knew I would be leaving for a long period of time, and that the possibility of that happening, I just wasn't sure if that would really happen or not.
Okay. Prior to June of 2000, before you left for this mission, did he ever propose to you?
No.
Did he ever encourage you not to go on this mission?
No.
Did he ever express a preference that you stay with him and get married as opposed to go on this mission?
No.
Okay. And you said that you were gone about a year and a half,
Yes.
right? Okay. And the only mode of communication that was available to you based on the dictates of your mission, I guess, if that's a fair way to put it, was that you could only write letters. Is
That's
that correct? Okay,
Excuse me, that's correct.
okay. Do you need a second to get some water, or are you okay?
I will.
Okay. Okay?
Yes.
All right. You mentioned that when you were speaking with Mr. Martinez, that in this correspondence, you had, and I should clarify before we do, this limitation about only writing letters that we discussed. Is that related to family? Does that apply to everyone, or are there different boundaries or rules, if I'm using the right words, in terms of your contact with others?
It applies to everyone. I was allowed to telephone my family twice a year, on Mother's Day and on Christmas.
Okay. So you weren't able to have any kind of phone contact or anything with Mr. Alexander during these 18 months?
Only letters.
Just the letters, okay. And when you were speaking with Mr. Martinez, you mentioned one of the letters, he wrote you a letter about something to the effect, I can't remember your exact words, but he was expressing a desire to see other people in this letter, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember, this is probably a pretty significant moment, if you will, right? For you to receive that letter from him?
I don't know what you mean by significant.
Well, you left with the idea, or maybe the expectation, that you may marry this man, right?
I didn't really expect him to wait for me the entire time.
Okay. So this letter you received then, it was no big deal?
I wouldn't say that it wasn't a big deal.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. How long into your mission was it, if you can recall, that you received this letter?
It was well into my mission. I was to be returning home in just a few months.
I'm sorry, I didn't, you said due returning home, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's when you received this letter that he wanted to date someone else?
Yes.
Okay. Did this letter state specifically, I want to date so-and-so?
No, it didn't.
Okay. Did you ever have a chance to respond to that letter or communicate with him before you returned?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And how many letters did you exchange after that, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. When you received that letter, you weren't upset, you weren't heartbroken?
I was sad.
Okay. Heartbroken?
I wouldn't say heartbroken at that time.
Were you in love with him at that time?
I was in love with him,
Okay.
but I was so busy in what I was doing there. And it was a good distraction, I guess you could say, to be there and to be doing what I was doing. I wasn't focused on our relationship. I was focused on the work that I was doing in Costa Rica.
Okay. So would it be fair of me to say then, you were hurt, but you had other outlets to kind of help you deal with that
Yes.
hurt? Okay. And your work in Costa Rica was important to you, so that really helped you deal with these issues, right?
It was.
Okay. You talked about, well, let me ask you this. You said you came back in 2002, is that right?
In 2001, I returned.
Okay. And after you returned, how long was it, and I mean physically returned, and then this time you were living in Riverside, if I followed your testimony correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And Travis was living in Riverside as well?
He was.
Okay. Do you recall, can you recall for us how long it was before, when you physically got back to Riverside, how long it was before you saw Mr. Alexander?
Before I saw him for the
Yeah.
first time, it was about 2 weeks, I would say. a week or so, somewhere in there.
Okay. How come it took so long?
Because I figured he was moving on with his life, and we were just in different places, and I had a lot of family stuff going on at the time, and so I figured I would call him when I was ready.
Okay. Did you know him to be dating anyone in particular when you got back?
I didn't know.
Okay. Do you know a person, or are you familiar with a person by the name Linda Ballard?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And who was she to Travis?
She was the person who he was dating at that time.
Okay. Did you meet her?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Had you known her previous to your departure to Costa Rica?
No, I didn't.
Okay. What was your impressions of the seriousness, we shall say, of the relationship between Travis and Linda Ballard?
I didn't know the level of seriousness of their relationship.
Okay. When you began to see him again after these few weeks passed, did you see him as friends, or did you begin dating again?
I saw him as friends.
Okay. And based on what you told us this morning, it sounds like you began dating him back in 2002 again, right?
Yes.
Okay. What was your understanding of how Mr. Alexander became available again to date?
That they had broken up.
Okay. And do you know when they broke up?
I don't know when.
Okay. When they broke up, did Travis tell you about that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I knew that she had moved out of state.
Okay. Now, I believe you told us this morning that you began dating exclusive in 2002 to 2004. You were in an exclusive relationship with Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned you mentioned the reason it ended is that you wanted to get married.
Yes.
May we approach?
Yes.
Ma'am, I think your mic may have cut out when you answered regarding breaking up with him because you wanted to get married. Your answer was yes to that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. As it relates to this desire of yours to get married, you would have been about 24 when you started dating him again in 2002, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I'm going to assume that when you broke up with him in 2004 because you wanted to get married, that this probably wasn't a shock to him, right? You'd mentioned it before?
We had talked about it before.
Okay. And were you ever engaged?
No.
Did he ever talk to you about getting married?
We talked about it.
Okay. And did he ever tell you that he wanted to marry you?
He didn't say it in that way. We talked about getting married and that I would be a good person, like, to marry, but that he
Okay.
just wasn't at that point yet.
Okay. And that's kind of what I was getting at. This wasn't something you just sprung on him in 2004, say, marry me or I'm out of here, right?
No, it's something we talked about.
Okay. And when you talked about it over the course of these 2 years, you must have felt like, in terms of hanging into the relationship, so to speak, that you still saw that as being a possibility for quite some time, right?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean.
Okay. Well, you're talking about how in 2002, and 2004, you're dating him. One of the goals in your life, probably independent of Travis, was to get married, right? Just have a family?
Yes.
Okay. So you told us earlier that you envisioned that maybe Travis would be that person for you, right?
That's right.
Okay. And you told us that about the time before you went on your mission or during your mission, right?
Yes.
You said that that is something that you thought about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I considered.
Okay. And then, moving from age 20 or 21 to 20, 23, 24, it probably becomes a little more serious, right? A little more urgent, a little more of a priority maybe in your life. Would that be fair to say?
Not really. It didn't seem that way to me. Like, we had talked about it, but we didn't talk about it that much. We were in love with each other, and we liked each other, and we had fun together. And the time that we were together went by quickly. So I didn't feel the pressure that we had to get married.
Okay. But you must have felt some on your own for this to be a reason to break up with Travis, right?
Yeah, eventually I did feel that way, and that's why we broke up.
Okay. And that feeling probably just didn't pop up overnight, is my point, right? You didn't wake up one day and say, marry me or we're done?
It wasn't overnight, but it was quickly. I had just realized how much time had gone by that we had dated and that it wasn't really progressing to that point, and I didn't see that it ever would.
Okay. And explain for us then, why didn't you see it going in that direction in 2004 when you broke up with him?
Because we had talked about it and talked about the fact that at that point he was not ready.
Okay. And at that point he wasn't ready, and that was enough for you to say, I'm not hanging out anymore, to wait for you to get ready, right?
That's right.
Okay. Now, when you broke up with him in 2004, we also talked about there was this period of time where he moved to Mesa and then you moved to Phoenix. Do you recall telling us about that this morning?
We did not break up in 2004.
Okay. When did you break up?
In 2000, it was in 2005.
Okay, 2005. All right. So this move in 2004, you were still together.
Yes.
Okay. But I did get that correctly. You both you and Travis moved to Arizona in 2004. Correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
But you were boyfriend and girlfriend when you both moved.
Yes.
Okay. When you broke up with Travis in 2005, did you maintain a relationship?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Was there a period of time where after you broke up, that you kind of separated from each other a little bit, or did you just break up and just kind of become friends the next day kind of thing,
No, there was a period of time, there was a couple weeks in there where we didn't speak to each other and just had some time away from each other.
Okay. And just because I want to be clear too, when you say you broke up with him, did you kind of sit him down and said, this is it? You had a conversation, said, I want to get married and you're not going in this direction, it's time to move on?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that you talked about this morning was the idea that Mr. Alexander never yelled at you or raised his voice to you, right?
That's right.
Okay. And that he never hit you, right?
That's right.
Okay. And did you and Mr. Alexander have a sexual relationship?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And when did that sexual relationship begin?
Well, we had been dating for a long time, and we were in love, and so that is something that happened. That's what happens when people are in love. And I don't know exactly when it was, but it was well into our relationship after we had moved to Arizona.
Okay. Well into your relationship after you moved to Arizona. And this isn't a question to judge. This isn't what we're talking about here, okay? But you would agree with me that as it relates to this sexual relationship, and you've been a lifelong member of your church, that would have been inconsistent with the dictates or the teachings of your church. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And because of that inconsistency was the fact that you were having this relationship, was that something you kept between the two of you?
That was our private business. We didn't tell people about it.
Right. I understand. And again, I'm not here to judge, I'm just asking. In terms of ramifications within your church, did you or Mr. Alexander face any ramifications in your church related to this activity?
No, people are just human. People within the church are human. And we make mistakes and we do things. And then we can go to the bishop, which we did.
Okay.
And we talked to him about our relationship.
Okay. And you said you went to the bishop. When did you do that?
I believe it was in 2005.
Okay. And was this, I would assume then that this was in the Phoenix, you wouldn't have been in the same ward and when you moved to Arizona, right? You living in Phoenix and he living in Mesa?
Yeah, we were not in the same ward. At that time, I was living in Mesa, like downtown Mesa area.
Okay. So you had the same bishop at that time?
We did not,
Okay.
no.
So did you each go to the bishop individually or separately?
Individually.
Okay. And my question earlier was as it relates to sanctions within the church or punishment within the church. Did you ever lose your temple recommend?
Yes.
Okay. To your knowledge, did Mr. Alexander lose his temple recommend?
Yes.
Okay. And this sexual relationship, you mentioned people make mistakes, and that's certainly understandable. Was this a one-time mistake, or was this a mistake that happened several times?
No.
Lack of foundation, are we talking about vaginal intercourse, oral intercourse, what are we talking about?
Okay.
Okay, let's step back then. You're familiar with what I believe is termed the vow of chastity within your church, is that correct?
The law of chastity.
Yes, okay, law of chastity, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I think I said vow. But do you take some sort of vow of chastity or something like that when you're in the church?
It's not a vow,
Okay,
but it's just rules that we live by. But sometimes, like I said, we're human, we mess up, and sometimes people break rules. And that's what happened in this situation.
okay. And I understand all that. I get that. And I understand that this is a sensitive topic, Ms. Reid. I get that as well.
Objection, no question.
Sustained.
This law of chastity would forbid oral sex, correct?
Yes,
It would prohibit anal intercourse, correct?
yes,
And it would prohibit penile vaginal intercourse, correct?
yes, any type of sexual contact.
Okay. In terms of breaking this law of chastity, was this a one-time thing or something that happened on several occasions?
Objection, lack of foundation.
Kind of breakage.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Sure. We talked about the law of chastity and the things that it forbids.
Yes,
Okay. What I was asking you is if you and Mr. Alexander broke that law one time or more than one time?
more than one time,
Several times?
several times.
Okay. And over how long a course of time did this sexual relationship last?
For, I would say, about a year.
Okay. And in terms of talking to the bishop, you mentioned you went separately, if I understood you correctly.
Yes,
Okay. When you went to your bishop, did you do so with Travis's knowledge?
yes,
Okay. When he went to his bishop, did he do so with your knowledge?
yes,
Okay. Based on that, then, would I be correct in assuming that you and he had some sort of discussion about you both going to see your respective bishops, correct?
we did.
Okay. And do you remember when it was that you went to see your bishop?
I believe it was in 2005.
Okay. Was this after you had broken up or while you were still together?
While we were still together.
Okay. And after you went to the bishop, did you go together to each person's respective bishop or did you both go individually?
We went individually.
Okay. Once you went to the bishop and had this discussion, or once you both did you and Travis break the law of chastity again, subsequent to that?
No,
Okay. Your Honor, if I may approach.
Yes.
Ma'am, I want to show you what's been marked Exhibit 562. This was an email that Mr. Alexander wrote to Mr. Hughes. You familiar with Chris Hughes?
yes,
And who was he to Travis?
a friend.
Okay. Would you do me the favor and read? There is a highlighted, and just to yourself, please, not out loud. Beginning here with to the end of the page.
Okay.
Have you read that?
Yes.
If I may approach again, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Reid. Ms. Reid, have you read this email prior to today?
No, I have not.
Okay. There is comment from Mr. Alexander that he did something unpardonable to you. Do you know what he's referring to?
Just that we were together for so long and that he did not marry me.
Okay. And that's unpardonable?
He says in there that that he was, sorry, I just forgot, I lost my train of thought. But he says that he just felt bad for dating me for so long, and that this was a time in my life when I should be getting married, and that he thought that now I was beyond that point of getting married. And so that's what he felt bad for.
During the course of your relationship as well, did he ever have you write letters to male friends of yours telling them that you couldn't be friends anymore?
No.
You never did that? Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 395.001. Did he ever ask you to wear an outfit like that?
No.
You said that you engaged in text messaging with him in 2005, a little bit, right? And even in the future, even up to 2008, right?
Yes.
Referring to you, what has been marked as Exhibit 391. Did he ever use phrases with you that you're the ultimate slut in bed?
No.
And did he talk to you about blowing enormous loads every time?
No.
Did he ever ejaculate on your face?
No.
Did he ever call you a whore,
No.
a slut,
No.
a three-hole wonder?
No.
Did he ever tell you how he wanted to tie you to a tree and, quote, put it in your ass?
No.
Must have had a different relationship that he did with Miss Arias, correct?
Object, lack of foundation.
Did he ever tell you that the way you moan, it's like a 12-year-old girl having her first orgasm?
No.
Did he ever tell you about wanting to cork the pot of a little girl?
No.
Let's talk about a little more about Mr. Alexander. This man you were together with for so many years. What did you know of his family background? Meaning his mother and father, specifically.
I knew of them.
Okay.
I knew about his upbringing.
Well, when you say you knew about his upbringing, what did you know?
I knew that it was rough, that his parents were drug addicts.
Okay. When you say drug addicts, do you know what drugs they were addicted to?
I don't know.
Okay. What else did you know about them?
I knew some of Travis's memories that he had told me of them.
What do you mean what do you mean his memories of them?
He told me that he had not only the bad memories, but he also had good memories of his mother throwing birthday parties for him and doing nice things for him.
Okay. And what were some of the bad memories?
Mostly just stories of neglect and wanting to be out of that house.
Okay. Neglect as in not having food to eat, not getting attention, that sort of thing? Is that what you mean when you say
Poor
neglect?
living conditions,
Okay, poor living conditions?
yes.
Okay. Did he describe how poor those living conditions were?
He did.
Okay. Was this sort of rat-infested, cockroaches, things that we could see in his book or his introduction to his book?
Those types of things, yes.
Okay. And what about his father? What did you know of his father?
Again, just things that he would tell me about his father, different memories that he had of him. And I also had seen a video that Travis showed me, because by the time I met Travis, his father had passed away.
Okay.
And he showed me a video of him, and I could just see how much Travis loved his father and how proud of him he was that he had started to clean up his life towards the end of his father's life.
Clean up his life, meaning we just talked about his father was a drug addict as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You spoke about neglect from we were talking a moment ago about his mother. Was his father also neglectful too, to your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. To your understanding, was his father physically abusive with Travis?
No.
To your understanding, was Travis's mother physically abusive with him?
No.
Okay. Travis's mother, you mentioned his father had passed away. Had she passed away as well before you met?
I met her.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that you had your ultimate goal. The reason you moved back in 2008, that's when you moved back to Riverside?
Yes.
Right, okay. And in terms of 2008, when you moved back, you said, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, you said something to the effect that you wanted to pursue your other goals,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other goals you were talking about was teaching?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you had is it a bachelor's degree in liberal arts?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. Is that something you earned in Arizona or something you earned in California?
In California.
Okay. And in terms of the goal of yours, this goal that you had, did you ever express that to Travis?
Yes.
Did he ever tell you the goal of being a teacher was stupid?
No, he was very supportive.
Okay. Did he ever try to downgrade you, try to tell you you should never do that?
No, he had seen me in different teaching situations at church, and he had also known how passionate I was about it, and so that's why he was supportive of it.
Okay. He was supportive of you being a teacher, right?
Yes,
Okay. Are you familiar with Lisa Andrews?
yes, I know her.
Okay. Are you familiar with the fact that he dated her?
Yes,
And are you familiar with the fact that it was real serious?
yes,
Are you familiar with the fact that it was as serious as maybe it might go to marriage?
yes,
Okay. Are you aware of the fact that he told her how stupid it would be for her to be a teacher?
no,
Different relationship, I guess. Thank you.
Redirect.
I'd ask that the last comment be stricken.
Sustained.
Ma'am, one of the things that you were asked about was this issue about this sexual activities that you may or may not have had with Mr. Alexander. Was your relationship based on sex mostly?
no, it was not.
And when you went to the bishop, did you lie to him about the activities that you had engaged in?
Nope, I told him everything.
Did you minimize, for example, say, you know, in your mind, we're having sexual intercourse, but I only told him that I was having oral sex. Did you do that?
No,
Well, if you did that, would there be any reason to go to them if you weren't going to be truthful about it?
no,
And with regard to these issues about whether or not he called you names or that sort of thing, do you know if he did use that language with regard to somebody else, do you know what the other person's participation may have been?
no, I don't.
Do you know anything about his sexual activities and whether or not the defendant was participating in these sexual activities with him?
I don't know.
With regard to your sexual activities, was it something that you and he would go about talking to people about?
No,
How about any sexual aspects that he had with the defendant? Did he discuss those with you?
no,
This issue about whether or not you were going to marry and why you broke up, he told you he wasn't ready to marry you is what you told us, right?
yes.
So was it a situation that he lied to you?
No, he was very honest about it.
And when you told him, we're done with this, and you'd broken up, was it a situation that he kept coming back and asking you for sex?
No,
Did you guys continue to have sex after you broke up?
no,
So is it something that you obviously could control then, right?
yes,
And was it a situation after you broke up with him that he was such a sexual monster that he kept coming over and grabbing at you and pawing at you to have sex with him? Did that happen?
no, he was always a gentleman. He never pressured me.
Sustained.
Was he a gentleman after this happened?
Yes, he was.
And if you told, did he even ask to have sex with you after you broke up with him?
He did not.
One of the things that you were asked about was this issue about these items that may have been sent, for example, over the mail. With regard to this picture that you were shown of a woman in some sort of skimpy outfit, do you remember being shown that?
Yes,
Do you know what the circumstances were of that?
I don't know.
Do you have any possible way of knowing the circumstances about that?
I don't.
How about what the relationship was, whether or not somebody likes to ejaculate on somebody's face? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know.
Do you know whether or not the defendant liked that?
I don't know.
Do you know whether or not she sent him text messages asking him to do that? Do you know any of that?
I don't.
So, do you know anything about their sex life?
I don't know anything about their sex life.
You do know about Mr. Alexander, don't you?
I do.
And at any time throughout this relationship, did he ever become verbally abusive to you?
No,
At any time, did he ever become physically abusive?
no,
At any time, when you didn't want to do something, did he start trying to push you in the direction that you didn't want to, you didn't want to go?
he did not.
At all times, was he respectful to you?
He was.
I don't have any other questions.
Looks like we have a juror question. Are there any other juror questions for this witness? Counsel, please approach. A juror has a question for you. Is the law of chastity widely known in your church, or is it something that is kept a secret?
It is widely known.
Is the law of chastity a topic of discussion in your 3-hour church days or any other event?
Yes, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
If so, to what degree?
They'll usually teach lessons on it in the different classes that we have during church. So every once in a while, there'll be a lesson specifically on the law of chastity.
Any other questions from the jury for this witness? Follow up, Mr. Martinez.
Any confusion as to the law of chastity, as to what it forbids and what it allows?
No,
Objection calls for speculation.
With regard to your knowledge of the law of chastity and what you have learned, any indication that there's any misunderstanding as to what it allows and it doesn't allow?
no, it's clear.
And it's clear what? What does it
It's
say?
clear that it allows, well, it does not allow any sexual contact between people who are not married.
And is there any wiggle room, so to speak? I know we're talking about a sexual issue here. Any wiggle room to believe that, well, maybe we can do this, but maybe we can't do that, as long as we interpret it differently?
Objection again calls for speculation, each person's belief.
Overruled. Me answer.
No, those things may happen, but if they do happen, it is in violation of the law of chastity, and that's clear.
I don't have anything else, thank you.
Mr. Nerman?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, in terms of the law of chastity, would someone taking a picture of their penis and sending it to someone else, would that be in violation of the law of chastity?
I don't know specifically, in my opinion, yes.
Okay. What about taking close-up pictures of a woman's genitalia? Would that be a violation of the law of chastity?
Yes.
Okay. How about someone who took close-up pictures of a woman's anus? Would that be a violation of the law of chastity?
Yes, it would.
Thank you.
You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
State calls Michael Melendez.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Your name, sir?
Michael Melendez,
What do you work for?
Mesa Police Department.
And previously, did you testify in this case?
Yes, I did.
Back in June of 2008, what were your duties with the Mesa Police Department?
I was in the computer forensics unit.
Did you have occasion to assist in the homicide investigation of Travis Alexander?
Yes, I did.
And specifically, as part of that investigation, did you have occasion to look at his laptop computer?
Yes, I did.
And by look at his laptop computer, what is it that you did?
I forensically examined his hard drive in the laptop computer.
You said that you examined his hard drive. When you say you examined the hard drive, what is the hard drive?
In the laptop is the drive, is the area that all the data is kept on the computer.
And why would you look at the hard drive?
That's where all the data is.
And that's some place that you could find whatever was going on in the computer, correct?
Yes.
And in examining the hard drive, were you able to access, or was there any indication that you were not able to access everything that was in the hard drive?
I was able to look at everything and access everything, yes.
And accessing this hard drive, were you able to see whether or not in this hard drive there were photographs of women from the waist up.
Yes.
And were you able to see whether or not there was tons of pictures of women's breasts on this hard drive?
I will be able to see that, yes.
And were you able to see it?
I did not find any, no.
And with regard to photographs, aside from tons, just were there any photographs of women's from the waist up showing their breasts? Did you even see any of that?
No, I did not.
Any images whatsoever of that in that laptop?
No.
What else did you do with regard to this? What examination did you conduct on this hard drive?
Initially, I searched for all types of file images, and we do that by searching for file headers, which is the beginning part of the file itself. This way, if there's a file embedded in another file, I'll be able to find that.
When you say file embedded in another file, what does that mean?
For example, if someone takes a photo or an image and puts it in a Word document, I will be able to find that.
All right, and with regard to that examination, did that reveal any images of women's breasts?
No, it did not.
To be clear, did it show the lower part either of a
No.
woman? Okay, what else did you do?
After that, I went through all the internet history, the registry of the computer itself.
The internet history, what did you find in looking at the internet history?
Just basic usage of going on the internet for different types of things, social media sites.
Did you find any access to any of the so-called adult sites?
No, I did not.
What else did you do?
I looked at the registry to see what type of software was added to the computer.
When you say that you looked at the registry to see what software was added, what is it that you're looking for, or what is it that you're doing there?
I'm just getting a feel for what type of software is added to. It gives you an idea of what this user is doing on the computer.
So if a person adds software, what would that tell you, if anything?
Well, if they have software, depending if it's a case involving, let's say, check fraud, and they have software that allows you to create checks, then it'll tell me that they had the ability to do that.
Was there any software that was added to this laptop?
Just basic software,
Such as what?
Windows, Office, things like that.
Anything related, for example, to going to adult sites or anything like that?
Well, in that sense, I will be looking for something that will be peer-to-peer, some software that will allow you to share files from one user to another.
And did you find that?
I did not.
And what else did you do in terms of searching this computer?
I searched every single file that I could open and opened it and see what was inside of it.
And did you see any, throughout this whole searching from beginning to end, did you see any images of children in that computer?
No.
I don't have anything else, thank you.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to clarify a bit. When Mr. Martinez was questioning you, he was talking about a laptop.
Yes.
Okay. But it's our understanding from your testimony prior that there was more than one, computer seized, right?
Yes.
Okay. And there was CDs and flash drives and what we would call media, right?
Yes.
Okay. And those also store information on them?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm asking that because I wanted to back up when we're talking about this laptop. This laptop was the one that was recovered in the office or den area, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And as it relates to that, this was a computer, this laptop was registered to, or the owner was a Deanna Reid, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And recalling from your testimony earlier, this particular computer, one of the things you told us a while back is that you looked at it for recent activity, I believe is the verbiage you used back then. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do recall
Okay.
that.
And one of the things you told us last time, if I remember correctly, is that around 4:30 in the morning, maybe a little after, this computer was being used to watch videos on YouTube. Is that correct?
I don't recall saying that, no.
Okay. Do you recall seeing that activity?
I recall seeing activity, yes. I don't recall saying that here, no.
you don't recall specifically saying what it was, but you recall saying it was used at 4:30 in the morning?
I don't recall saying
On
that,
June
no.
4th, okay. Well, I should ask you this, Detective. Do you have a copy of your report or analysis with you today?
No, I do not.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the afternoon recess. Please be back in the designated area at 10 minutes after 3. Please remember the admonition, you are excused. Please stand for the jury. Please be seated. We are at recess. You're free to step down. Thank you. Please be seated. Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Nerman, you may continue with cross-examination.
Detective, in your prior testimony here, and even today, as a matter of fact, you told us that you did a forensic examination of this laptop that was in the office or den area, correct?
Yes, correct.
And that was the laptop that was the registered owner of this laptop was Deanna Reid, correct?
Yes, that's the name that was on the software.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's the name that was on the software who registered it, yes.
All right. And in terms of a forensic examination of a computer, without going into great detail, can you tell us kind of what you do, what that involves?
Do you want from the beginning, or I don't know how much detail do you want?
Well, yeah, from the beginning. I mean, you seize the computer, you make a mirror, we'll do it this way. You seize the computer, you make a mirror image of the hard drive, right?
Yes,
And one of the things you told Mr. Martinez is you go for the hard drive because that's where the data is, right?
yes,
Okay. And once you make that mirror image of the hard drive, you can see its contents, activity, web browser history, things of that nature, correct?
correct.
In most cases, and that happened in this case, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you did that forensic examination of this computer, this laptop, and you were the one who seized it in the property, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you took every assurance you could to make sure that you powered it down correctly, those kind of things, so you could preserve that data, I would expect?
yes, I did.
Okay. And after you did that forensic examination, you wrote a report, correct?
Correct.
And that's about what we were ready to talk about at break. I want to show you, if I may approach, Your Honor, what's been marked Exhibit 347. And officer, if you could take a look at that and tell us if you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
And what is that document?
That's my written report.
Okay. Sir, if you could be so kind and go to the second page of that document. And I believe it's perhaps the second and third paragraph down about your examination of that computer. Could you just read that to yourself?
Okay.
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 Okay. And based on that, and kind of going back to the question we had before the break, does that refresh your recollection regarding the activity you noticed on that computer?
Right, it states that the last activity was at 16:54 hours on 6/4/2008.
Okay. 16:54 hours, could you translate that into?
4:54 p.m.
4:54,
Right, p.m.
okay, all right. Now, in terms of internet browsing, what is the term cookie?
Cookies, it's basically packages that when you go to a website, it will send that information so that the next time you go to the website, it recognizes you as a user.
Okay. But in terms of doing an analysis too, for lack of a better word, these cookies leave a trail to where someone's been on the internet, don't they?
It depends.
Okay. They can?
Yes.
Okay. Because in order to have that recognition, the computer has to have, you have to have been somewhere in order for that place to recognize you, that kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Is that what we're saying? Okay. So if someone has cookies on their computer that designate that they've gone to a certain place, then that kind of gives you a guide as to their internet history, correct?
Actually, their internet history, I will go based on where they actually went to, which is in the internet history. It'll tell you which websites they went to.
Okay. But cookies can tell you the same thing if it's not in that immediate browser, right?
Right. My preference would be to look at exactly where they went to based on the internet history. So the
What-
cookies were maybe a secondary way of looking at it, But my
Okay.
preference would be to look at exactly what they typed in their search browser and where they actually went to.
I understand, but
Right.
even though maybe it wouldn't be the preference, you can, cookies can help you kind of retrace where somebody's been, right?
There might be information there, yes.
All right. A detective showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 419 regarding the analysis of this computer. One of the things that this exhibit shows us is the profile name. That's whom the software is registered to, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And this time here is about 4:08 in the morning, right?
yes.
And this is kind of an internet history, is that correct?
That's what it says. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is.
Okay. And so at 4:08 in the morning, we have a person on this computer looking at this YouTube drunk Daft Punk video, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And we have somebody looking at this same, or a different video, but in the same YouTube at 4:11 a.m., right?
yes.
Okay. And detective, we can also see, we have someone watching another YouTube video, this one called Daft Hands. You see that?
Yes,
And that's at June 4th at about 4:15 in the morning, correct?
yes.
And in terms of the internet history of this laptop, we can see that at 4:24 in the morning, there was more activity with YouTube, correct?
Yes.
And what this really means, may be common sense, but what this really means is that someone was using that laptop between 4:08 and 4:20 something in the morning, watching videos on YouTube. Is that correct?
Well, you're assuming that they actually played the videos. I don't know if they did or not.
Okay,
I would say that someone accessed YouTube at that time, yes.
Someone accessed it.
Yes.
We don't know for sure whether they played the video or not, but you
Yeah,
can
I
see.
wouldn't know.
Okay, fair enough, but you can see signs that it was accessed, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Sir, with regard to this harder, faster, stronger, had this involved women with their breast bared, would you have noted that?
Yes,
Would it, if it had involved women with the bottom portions of their bodies bared, would you have also noted that?
yes,
If I may have the exhibit that you have in front of you?
sure.
Sir, one of the things that you indicated to defense counsel was that, based on your examination, there was, the last activity was at 16:54 hours, correct?
Yes,
And that's 4:54 PM on June 4th, correct?
correct.
Sir, do you know how that activity got on there?
I don't recall the exact activity, but that's the last time someone used.
Or somebody attempted to get on this
Right,
computer,
yes.
correct? So it could be that one of the police officers or somebody else may have touched it, right?
At 4:54 PM, I'm sorry. At 4:50,
right.
at that time, I'm not sure if they were there or not. I don't know.
Well, somebody was there to access it on June 4th at 4:54 PM, correct?
Correct.
And you don't know how that happened, right?
No.
So it could have been Mr. Alexander, correct?
Yes.
Could have been Ms. Arias, you just don't know who accessed it at that
Correct.
time, correct?
Correct.
We do know that the police showed up sometime later, right?
Yes.
Do you know exactly what was being accessed on June 4th of 2008?
Except,
At 4:54 4 PM?
I don't recall.
But it was just being accessed, correct?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions.
I have one question from a juror. It looks like we have a second one. Any other questions? Counsel, please approach. Mr. Melendez, the jurors have some questions for you.
Okay.
Regarding all of the electronics seized, did you find any indication of pornography, naked women, or child photos on any of the items you examined?
I did not find any of that on any of the items I examined related to Mr. Alexander.
Regarding Travis's camera, just for clarification, all pictures were not deleted, is that correct?
That is correct.
The pictures depicting Jodi and Travis in sexual poses and the pictures before and after the killing were deleted, but there were pictures left on the camera, is that correct?
That is correct.
If so, do you know how many pictures were left?
From recollection, I believe there were more than 90.
Any other questions from the jury? Follow up, Mr. Martinez.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Nurmi?
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we need to take about a 10-minute recess, so please go back to the jury room. We will call you back shortly. Please remember the admonition. We are at recess. Counsel, I will see you in chambers. Thank you. Please be seated. Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the evening recess at this time. You do not need to return until 1:30 tomorrow. 1:30 tomorrow. Please remember the admonition. Are there any questions? Have a nice evening. You are excused. Counsel, anything else for today? We are at recess.